Hi, I'm Anne. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to my mid-year reading wrap-up. So I've realized that at my end of the month, I have a lot of books. I usually wrap up. Last month was a rare exception where I only had 5 books to wrap up, but usually I have at least 10. And a lot of times I want to talk a while about them, but I don't feel like I can talk about each specific book because I'm trying to rush through and not have the video be too long. So I'm trying something this month. We'll see if I carry it over or if I'll want to wrap up all my books at the end of the month. But I want to do like a mid-month wrap up where I talk about the books that I have read. It's currently the 19th of March, which makes it nearer to the end of the month, but I'm also starting to read a lot. So I wanted to wrap up the books that I read, talk about a little bit of the books that I'm currently reading, and just like reading updates in general. First, let's talk about a couple reading updates in general. I've definitely come out of my slump, and I attribute that to a couple books that I read earlier this month, so I'll be talking about those. They were really fun. I also did something really weird this month. So, Goodreads giveaways. Here's the thing with Goodreads giveaways. I have probably entered into like 5 or 6 in my entire life, and it's just been books that I've been really excited about, and I've never won it all. So a part of me just this month was like, oh, let's go on Goodreads and see what giveaways are current and just enter a whole bunch. So I entered like maybe 20 in like a day or two. And because I was like, oh, there's no way I'm gonna win. And I've won 3 currently. So I just want to mention those books. And I already started reading one of those books. And that is Lucky Leap Day by Anne Marie Walker. It's like a comedy about this woman who goes to Ireland after her like boyfriend was discovered cheating on her. And she meets this like Irish guy, and they end up having like spending one day together and then getting really drunk and then accidentally getting married. So then they have to deal with that stuff. So far it is like so over the top and ridiculous, but it's kind of funny. I'm enjoying it, but I'm only like 40 some pages into that one. But I actually won that on my Kindle. And then the other one I actually shared on Instagram, which is the first giveaway I've ever won. And that's Then Came the Thunder by Rachel Hozar. This is set after the Civil War, and it's about this woman whose husband died in the war. He was on the Union side, and strange things start to happen in her town. I haven't read it yet, but I'm really excited to. And then the last one is The Clackery by Laura Senf. And this is an actual physical format book. With Goodreads giveaways, usually the ones that are physical, they only have like 5 copies they're going to give away, and the ones that are on Kindle, they give like 100 copies away. So you're much more likely to win a Kindle edition than you are a physical edition, which makes sense because it's a lot cheaper for a publisher just to make a Kindle edition. I was so surprised that I got this one. It's basically a middle grade book about this girl who enters this world of like ghosts and witches and things like that, and it sounds so cool. They do say that it takes like, I think 8 to 10 weeks for your book to get there. The Clackery isn't actually supposed to be released until June of 2022. And I'd never heard of it before, but I saw the information on Goodreads and I was like, this looks really interesting. And basically every book I've read that's middle grade, I have enjoyed. So that happened this month. Also, I did get 2 new books this month. Okay. Hear me out, I didn't buy them. The first one I got is In the Garden of Beasts by Eric Larson. And my teacher at my college was having us work on Chicago-style citations for our paper, which are the way that academic journals and things cite history sources, basically. And he had us cite this one. And he wanted to get rid of all these books. So he had like 3 or 4 that he gave each group. And this one was the one I ended up with, and you guys know I just read Devil in the White City by Eric Larson, and I absolutely loved it. So I picked this up, and it was free, and he's like, please take all the books you wanted. But I was like, I'll just take this one, and I'll be good. But I did get a free book. But it doesn't really count because I didn't actually buy it. And then the other one I got, this one I am just... It definitely turned around my week that was kind of not going so well. So this is The Saint and the Sinner. Shelley Swearengin has read this on her channel and is reviewing it for awards. I saw this on her channel and I was like, oh my gosh, that is such a cool book. This is Dostoevsky and the Gentleman Murderer Who Inspired a Masterpiece. So basically, it talks about the inspiration of Crime and Punishment, which is like my favorite book of all time. So I saw this and I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a cool book. And she's like, oh, here, I'll send you a copy. And I expected her to send me like a used copy, but no, she sent me like a new copy, and it was such a sweet thing to do. So Shelly, if you're watching this, thank you, and you're awesome. But so I got a copy of this and I do want to read it as soon as possible, but I have so many other books to read. Oh, all right, let's get to the quick rundown of the books that I read this month. So I'm not going to go lowest rated to highest rated. I'm going to go into how I read them. So like the first book I finished this month and so on. The first book I finished this month is Imperial Woman by Pearl S. Buck. This is a historical fiction following the life of Empress Cixi. She was known as the last empress of China. She was around like mid 1800s all the way up to the early 1900s. And basically she worked her way up to being a very lowly concubine in the imperial court, all the way up to being the empress. And then after her husband died, she took control for her son because her son was a very young child. And then eventually her son died, and then her nephew technically became emperor, but she kind of held the control. And yes, it was in a very changing time of China. But basically this is a fictional reimagining of her life. Pearl S. Buck makes the point in the introduction that a lot of people have misunderstood Cixi, making her seem like this power-hungry, horrible woman. And she tries to turn that around and make her more relatable and understandable. Saying that because of that, Cixi seems very like perfect. Like there's nothing she can do wrong. Everything that goes wrong is not her fault. It's fine. So it goes a little bit too far, but I understand what Pearl S. Buck was doing because a lot of the historians before her had been very negative to the empress. So it makes sense that she would want to clear up misconceptions. So I really enjoyed this book. The description is just beautiful. And even if it's fiction, you can't exactly take it to be historical accurate. It is highly detailed when it comes to Chinese society. So I really love this book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next one is The Duke's Last Governess by Maya Ross. This is like a free book I got on Kindle, and it's just like a light Regency romance. I did not like this. It's not incredibly bad. It's just very lackluster, very underdeveloped. It follows this trope, there's this woman who comes to this mysterious house where this man could have murdered his wife to take care of his children. It's very like Jane Eyre type theme story. And that's fine for me. Like, even if you use a trope that has been used a lot before, if you add an interesting twist on it, that's totally fine. But none of the characters were that unique. So like everything was predictable. I was hoping for her to spend more time with the children, get to know them, turn it into a little bit of Nanny McPhee, because in the beginning the children are said, they drove out like so many nannies before you. So I was like, ooh, this is going to be interesting. But then it wasn't interesting at all. Also, there's that like concept of like the social divide between a average governess and a duke. But then it didn't really come up. Like the Duke did at one point say, oh, she is so below me, but I don't really care. But like you never saw him deal with any consequences for it, her deal with any consequences. It was just something that existed like randomly, but didn't actually have an impact on the story. Similarly, we're told that the entire society believes that he murdered his wife, and yet that doesn't really come up in society. Like, you'd think he'd be ostracized a little bit more if everyone thought he was a murderer. I don't know. I'm just saying. The third book I read, I actually got from my library, and I got it, I think the day after Russia started the invasion of Ukraine. So, because I was like, oh my gosh, I need to like learn more about Ukraine and this situation. And obviously the news is not the best at reporting things. So I got Red Famine, Stalin's War on Ukraine, 1921 to 1933 by Anne Applebaum. Basically, it's a nonfiction documenting how after the Bolshevik Revolution, Russia invaded Ukraine and how it resulted in some of the worst famines. The worst famine is like from 1932 to 1933. Millions of people in Ukraine starved to death. Most of the reasoning behind why it happened, it seems to be because of the collectivization of farms. So basically, instead of having like a small farmer own the land and work that land and produce his own crops, you would have him still work that land, but then you'd have those crops collected by the Russian government or people who worked for the Russian government and then redistributed, which basically meant the majority of food was sent back to Russia, meaning the Ukrainian people basically starved to death. So it does talk about a lot of famines that were going on during that time. It's a slow burn. It's got a lot of detailed information, and I did find myself skimming certain parts because there was so much detailed information. I struggled with it because it gets into the Russian government that came in and took control of Ukraine. It talks about the different uprisings in Ukraine against the Russian government. It takes a lot of like detailed look, but it was a brilliant book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. All right, so the next book I technically read, I read The Chimes and The Cricket on the Hearth by Charles Dickens. So I'd already read The Christmas Carol, and so I was reading the other 2 books in this story. So I think the first one of them takes place around New Year's, so not technically a Christmas story, but it's around the same time, and the other one takes place around Christmas. And I definitely preferred the Chimes more. So Christmas Carol, of course, I've always given 5 stars. The Chimes I would give about like 4.5 or almost 5 stars because I really did enjoy it. It follows this man who is older and he has his daughter, but he listens to society a bit too much. Like, she is in love with this young man who wants to get married, and they run into like these wealthy guys that are snobs and that tell her, oh no, marriage isn't for you, you are lowly, you are the lower class. And basically he listens to them, and then he ends up having like a dream where where he has died, and then his ghost travels around seeing what would happen if he didn't exist, what would happen if his daughter never married this man. And it's similar to The Christmas Carol in that. And then The Cricket on the Hearth is about, the best way to describe it is there's an array of characters. There is this man who has a blind daughter, and their brother is gone or missing. I don't remember where he is. But there's a stranger who appears in town, and there's this miser who wants to marry the woman who was set to marry the brother of the blind girl, and madness ensues. It's a very light, fun story. I didn't enjoy it as much as The Chimes. I would give it like 4 stars or something like that, but it was still a fun, light story. And I think I would have enjoyed it if I actually read it around Christmas more, because I would be more in the Christmas spirit. All right, the next book I read for my book club, and that is The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. It follows this group of people I think they're from London. They go on vacation to Scotland, this Scottish hunting lodge, which seems strange to me because I had no idea there were still like hunting lodges where you could like hire people to take you hunting. That just seems a bit weird to me. I don't know. But so they go and someone is murdered. But so the story is set both in the present, that person is murdered, the body is found, the 2 employees of the lodge are trying to figure out what's going on. But then it goes back like 4 or 5 days when this group came, and then it follows their stories. Now, the book is told in the majority of the characters' perspectives. There is Doug. He's an employee at the hunting lodge with many mysteries. You know, you've Miranda. She's the popular girl of the group that comes. Emily. Oh, I can't remember the other girl's name. Then you have my favorite character. Heather is the other employee at the hunting lodge. I enjoy Doug and Heather's characters. They're interesting characters. They're hiding a lot of secrets. You're trying to learn about them. But the whole group of the hunting party, I really hated all their characters. They were so horrible. I gave this 3 stars, so I still enjoyed it. It was a fun, interesting mystery, especially as we're like piecing things together. But I just did not like any of the main characters. And I understand they're all supposed to be horrible, but I also feel like you're supposed to kind of like their characters, but no, I did not. All right, next one I won't talk much about because I talked like for 45 minutes about it, and that is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I did a whole review on my channel for this Wednesday, so yes, watch that because I have many thoughts about it. I did not like this book. I gave it 1 star, and it's about this girl who inherits a fortune and has to figure out why she's inheriting this fortune because she's never heard of any of these people. It's basically the story. Yesterday, I finished the book that I contribute to getting me out of reading slump because I absolutely love this book, and that is Up to No Gouda by Linda Riley. I love this book. It is so much fun. It's so light. It's a cozy murder mystery. It follows this woman who just opened her own grilled cheese sandwich restaurant, which sounds amazing, might I add. And this guy who just took over the lease to her building comes in and he's like, yeah, you need to be out in like 2 months because I'm turning this this restaurant into a boutique for my fiance. I don't remember what kind of boutique, but so basically he turns up dead the next day, of course, and the other employee of the restaurant is accused of murdering him. So Carly, the main character, has to like figure out what's going on, and it's such a light and fun cast of characters. I just loved it so much. And when you look at it with a critical lens, yes, it's not that unique when it comes to cozy mysteries, but cozy mysteries are supposed to be just light and fun, and that's exactly what this book gave me. It gave me exactly what I needed to get out of my reading slump, and yes, since then I've been reading a lot. The final book I finished is Jingo by Terry Pratchett. Finally finished it, finally forced myself to finish it. I don't think it's one of my favorite books by Terry Pratchett, but I did come to understand kind of what he was trying to do. He was trying to say just how ridiculous and pointless war is, which makes sense. I talked about this a month or 2 ago, and basically it follows these constables or guards at this city, which is currently, or started a war with another city over this random island that has come out of the lake or ocean in the middle of these 2 cities. And like, it's such a pointless because the island is not worth it. And it's so ridiculous, but it follows like similar characters to Guards, which I love that book. It wasn't bad. It just felt like besides the theme, it was kind of pointless. Like there wasn't that much to enjoy about besides like the funny, quirky humor and the overall theme. The bigger plot just never came together quite well for me. All right, so those are all the books that I finished. Books I'm reading real quick that I'm hoping to get done by the end of the month. So Lucky Leap Day, I'm currently like 15% in. So hoping to finish that. I'm currently reading Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne on audiobook. I'm listening to that because I can't listen to it like 2 to 3 times speed as I usually do because there's so much depth to the world. So I'm listening it at 1.5 speed. And so yeah, I'm moving through it very slowly. I'm currently like 25% in. Then I just started Arsenic and Dobo that I got from the library, and I didn't want to start it till I had finished Up to No Gouda because I can't read 2 cozy mysteries at once. So it follows this, I think she's a Filipino girl who goes back to run her grandmother's restaurant, but her ex-fiance is there and he ends up getting murdered, and then she has these conniving aunts that are great. So yeah, it's a fun book so far, but I just started that last night, so not very far. I do need to finish The History of Religions in Korea. I do think I'll be able to finish this one. However, I don't think I'll be able to finish Dorothy L. Sayers, her short stories. I don't think I'll have time. So we'll see about that. I do want to, in my mind, get started in reading on this month. I don't think I'll finish it, but I will try to read it. So yeah, that's an update on my reading. Have you read any of these books? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. If you enjoyed my video, like, subscribe. I post every Saturday and Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern time, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!